Two Fortico security guards are heading out on a normal routine to deliver some cash, when a construction crew suddenly blocks their path and armed men block them in, cut their way into the truck and flashbang the guardsmen before dragging them out. The crew begin unloading the cash when suddenly shots ring out and it turns out, one of the robbers has killed the two guards and also an innocent bystander. The crew have no time to waste, the cops are coming so they haul ass. 5 months later, Patrick Hill, a grim-looking man, applies for a job at the Fortico security company. He is briefed by his manager Terry about the rules and expectations before meeting his trainer, who introduces himself as Bullet. The plan is for Patrick to go through a series of tests with the passing grade being 70%. He does a simple physical exam, shooting assessment and a bit of driving and somehow manages to get exactly 70%. Now being a part of the team, Patrick is introduced to the others as H, and then given his locker. Patrick is issued his pistol and then meets his other partner Dave, who is not so pleased with having the rookie on his team. Bullet, Dave and Patrick then set out, where Dave tries rattling Patrick's nerves, telling him how dangerous the job can be, but Patrick does not seem fazed. They stop at the Bank of United States to collect $3 million to be transported back to base. The cash is loaded and the men are on their way back to Fortico with no issues. As the others head out, they talk among themselves about how strange Patrick seems, like he has some sort of dark history. Once they leave, Patrick silently observes their IDs and it is apparent that he is up to something. The guards are playing pool, when some of the guys begin messing with another guy named John, telling him that Patrick will be taking his spot in the company. They mock him until he can't take it and walks over to Patrick, trying to intimidate him, but Patrick tells him to piss off and he runs off with his tail between his legs. The next day, Bullet is making a money drop with Patrick and Dave in the truck. Bullet has been gone a while and Dave checks in on him, only to hear another voice on the line, warning them to follow their instructions or Bullet is dead. Dave immediately starts freaking out, saying they should drive away with the cash and leave Bullet, but Patrick tells him to get his panties in a bunch and calm down, as he will not leave Bullet behind. Dave reluctantly agrees to follow the man's instructions, until they get to an abandoned street with two jeeps blocking them in. The man orders them to throw out the money into the truck behind them and Patrick begins to comply, but throws one bag on the ground. Turns out Post Malone is the goddamn robber, and he yells at Patrick to stop messing around. As one robber steps out, Patrick suddenly shoots him, then opens fire on the men who return fire on him. Patrick then skillfully kills the men, before chasing after Post Malone, who has now made a run for it. Patrick shoots him in both his legs, dropping him, wanting to know who he works for. Post Malone refuses to answer, so Patrick shoots him dead. Dave and Bullet enter the room, shocked to see how brutal Patrick is. The next day, Patrick is called into a meeting with two FBI agents, who are wondering how he was able to kill 6 men so easily. They show Patrick a video of a previous robbery to see if there was any connection, and Patrick keenly observes, noticing something, but not revealing anything to the agents. Terry then meets with Patrick, telling him that maybe he should consider taking a desk duty in case of PTSD, but the CEO of Fortico, Blake Hall, interrupts them and sends Patrick off, telling Terry that they need someone like him on their team. We then see the FBI agents reporting to their boss Agent King. They know who Patrick really is, knowing that they have been trying to catch him for 25 years. Agent King tells them to keep it under wraps and let things play out. Patrick is at home when a woman stops by, handing him documents, which turns out to be files on all the agents on the Fortico team. 3 months later, the three are on a run when they are ambushed by a team of highly skilled men, who block out their windows and begin smoking them out of the truck. Patrick steps out and reveals his face to the men, who start shitting themselves and take off immediately. Terry hears the news and can't believe what he is hearing, thinking that Patrick may have psychopathic tendencies. Outside, Dana, another guard, invites him for drinks and they engage in demonetizing activities at her place after. Patrick wakes her up and reveals that he found her large stash of cash and suspecting her of knowing something about the heists. He demands to know where she got the money, and when Dana thinks that it's a joke, he fires 2 shots at her and I'm sure she peed a little. She explains that she found it unattended on a job one day and kept it. Patrick wants to know if she is working with anyone inside Fortico but learns that she is not. Everything started 5 months ago. Patrick, whose real name is Mason Hargreaves, a notorious crime lord, was heading out with his son Dougie, when he got a call from his right-hand man Mike, requesting that Patrick help them out with spotting a cash truck. Everyone else is busy, so Patrick decides to take the job, only having to tell what direction the truck is going. He gets to the location and leaves Dougie in the van. He walks to the Fortico gates and sees the truck leaving the depot. He gives Mike the information, but this truck is actually the same truck from the first scene which gets ambushed. Dougie, who was left in the car, was spotted by one of the men and ordered to exit the car and lay on the ground. Dougie desperately tried calling Patrick but was left with no choice but to comply. After the 2 security guards were shot, Dougie was the bystander who was shot next. Patrick, who was getting food, heard the shots and tried rushing to Dougie, but ended up being shot over 6 times by the same man. 3 weeks after the shooting, Patrick woke up from a coma with nothing but revenge on his mind. He faced his ex-wife, who blamed him for the death of their son, and called him a very cold person as Patrick just sits there saying nothing, even as she storms out. Patrick then secretly met with the FBI agent King, who gave Patrick a list of all the possible suspects in the murder of his son, giving him the go-ahead to do whatever he wants with them. Hearing this, Patrick meets with his top lieutenants Moggy, Brendan, and Mike, demanding that they find the shooter. The men reveal that they have been combing the streets, taking out men left and right but have ended up empty-handed. Patrick is not satisfied with their answer, so Mike understands the assignment. The men then hit a high-level gangster named Jerome, pulling him out of bed. They bring him to an abandoned lot, where they bag his head and brutally beat him, demanding a name. Mike cannot get a name out of the man, so Patrick decides to take over. Patrick has his men bring in Jerome's daughter and bag her, so Jerome gives up a name right away, the Gashi brothers, some real dirty guys. Patrick and his men raid the brothers' place where they discover kidnapped girls and a trafficking ring. Turns out the Gashi brothers were not responsible for the hit, so Patrick casually shoots all the men in the house before having his guys free the girls. After this, Mike warns Patrick that their killing spree will draw too much attention and make them too much enemies, so Patrick agrees to lay low in London, but instead he changes his name from Hargreaves to Patrick, taking on an entirely new persona to seek his vengeance alone. He then joined Fortico and began investigating all the employees as he suspected an inside job. Sometime before the first robbery, a group of disgruntled Afghanistan veterans, led by their former sergeant, Jackson, decide to become thieves. Their first robbery results in only a few $100,000, so with help from an unidentified guard who served under Jackson, they plan to pull off an even more ambitious heist of a Fortico armored truck. The men disguise themselves as construction workers and post up when they see Patrick's car pull up. The men spot the Fortico truck and get their plan underway, cutting their way into the truck and ordering the guards out. Turns out, one guard tried to fight back, causing a robber named Jan to shoot him, and seeing that his face was exposed to Dougie, who was on the ground, Jan decided to shoot Dougie dead before turning his gun on Patrick. 5 months after their heist, Jackson gathers his team once more, looking to hit one last score before retiring for good. The men are intrigued, and Jackson reveals that he is planning to rob the cash depot at Fortico on Black Friday, to grab possibly $150 million, counting on their inside man to come through. It is now Black Friday and Terry meets with the entire Fortico staff, reminding them to keep their eyes and ears open, before sending the teams out. Frank and Bullet collect the last drop-off for the day and are heading back, when Bullet reveals to Patrick that he is the inside man for a team of robbers, the same robbers that robbed the truck and killed the innocent boy, and this makes Patrick furious, but he plays it off. Bullet reveals the plan to rob the depot, wanting Patrick's help to get them in. Patrick agrees to the deal, so Bullet alerts the robbers before pulling into an abandoned lot, with the team right behind him. The men load Patrick out of the truck and tie his hands, before 3 guys jump in the truck with the other following behind. Bullet pulls into the depot and get access without any issues, and immediately the men jump into action, holding the guards at gunpoint before further tying Patrick's feet to secure him. An alarm is raised, and soon gunfire erupts, as the guards open fire on the men who are armored and tanking their shots. The robber eventually breach the gates to the vault and begin taking out the guards, but one of the robbers gets peppered with bullets and falls. Once the men have control of the depot, they allow the other robbers to enter so they can begin loading in the cash. Dana and 2 other guards are hiding in the back of a truck when one decides to be a hero. He opens fire on the men, distracting them, so Patrick uses the opportunity to attack the guard next to him, pinning the man down and eventually killing him. He manages to free himself and puts on the man's helmet, and ambushes and shoots another guard, before dropping a cell phone inside the money bag. He ambushes another guard and takes a shot to his helmet before the 2 men begin to struggle, but Patrick manages to overpower him and stab him to death. Meanwhile, the robbers are looking to make their escape as the SWAT team is on their way. However, Dana and 2 other guards manage to get their hands on some weapons and are holding the men back. Bullet then runs over to the guards and they think he is with them, but he ends up shooting everyone dead. The men begin to make their escape, but Patrick grabs a machine gun and opens fire on the men. As he is distracted, Bullet comes up behind him, shooting down Patrick in a hail of bullets. As he lays there, he sees the face of the man that killed Dougie. The men make their escape, but it turns out that only Bullet, Jan and Jackson have made it. However, Jackson has been shot in the neck and is bleeding out. The men manage to lose the cops inside an underground parking lot, and while Bullet and Jan are unloading the cash, Jackson pulls his gun preparing to kill Jan. Jan returns and disarms Jackson easily and kills him silently with a knife, before returning to Bullet, telling him that Jackson passed away from his gunshot wound. The two men use a secret passage to move the cash to ATVs, which leads them to the end of a tunnel where a car is waiting for them. The two men are loading in the cash, and Bullet is now preparing to double-cross Jan and pulls his gun, but Jan is quicker and kills Bullet, before driving away alone with the cash. Jan is at home celebrating the heist when he hears a phone ringing. The sound is strangely coming from inside one of the bags and he realizes too late that Patrick is sitting there right behind him. Patrick throws him an autopsy report, where it shows that Dougie was shot in the lungs, the liver and the spleen and finally shot in the heart. Jan asks him what he wants, and Patrick wants his liver, his lungs, his spleen, and as Jan lays there, Patrick ends him with a shot to his heart. Patrick makes his way outside where he tells Agent King that the job has been completed. He then gets into a waiting car outside, and drives away into the night. Remember to turn on notifications, so you can watch more movie recaps like this. Thanks for watching.